And good evening, everybody. Welcome to this edition of Untold Radio AM. Hey, I'm liking the new intro, by the way, Alex. I like that.
Hey,
short, sweet, and right to it, man. Right now, we're in it. Yeah, really quickly before we do anything else today, I just want to throw this out there. It was brought to my attention. I think it's kind of important. May is Mental Health Awareness Month. So if your guys are struggling, or if you know anyone that's struggling or having a hard time, go ahead, just reach out for help, because not enough people do. And that's why I wanted to go ahead and throw that out there. So again, May is Mental Health Awareness Month. We love each and every one of you, but if you're struggling, reach out. There.
Yeah, suicides have gone through the roof.
Yes, they have. Yes, they have. Absolutely.
Not good. But what an upper thing to start the show.
Right, man. It's important. Not everything in life that's important is an upper.
I know.
I know, right? Right.
That's
but
the
on the
worst.
upside, Elon Musk bought Twitter.
Yeah.
Think about that. That's be good.
Pocket change.
Are you a Twitter guy? Are you a tweeter?
No, I don't even know how to tweet.
You don't know how to tweet.
I don't even know.
Alex, are you a tweeter or are you a Snapchatter or what are you?
No. Well, Untold Radio has a website. We have a.
No, I understand that.
Oh, he does it.
You're personal.
You're personally, no. Outside of work, no.
Yeah.
What are we gonna say? I drank a bottle of water. I mean, I don't know. I don't really get it.
You don't get it.
I don't have opinions. I want other people to,
So what you're saying is you're not down with the Utes?
Just I'm not interested.
What's a youth?
A youth. You never saw my cousin Vinny?
Yeah, well, you know what? Twitter is great probably for news and for businesses and people like Elon. But I don't know. Yeah. Maybe if Alex shows me how to do it.
You're not missing anything. I've tried the Twitter. I mean, nothing, no knock against it. Just wasn't my preferred method of social media.
The thing is, when you start tweeting, aren't you tweeting yourself, or can you post on other people's Twitter accounts? Is that how it works?
You're asking the wrong dude.
No, I'm asking Alex.
It's just like Facebook. It goes to your feed. I mean, you can like at people and they'll get pinged.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah. Will it show up on their website though? Or
they won't show up unless they retweet it. They'll just be notified like, oh, hey, Doug mentioned you. And then if they want to share it, they can.
Okay. So it's a permission.
Yeah. So the retweet button is basically sharing it on their feed with all of their followers.
So it's not like a guy cooks a steak in a coffee maker and gets 65 million views.
No, that's like TikTok.
I mean, unless Will Smith really likes what he made that morning and shares it to his, followers.
He does what?
I'm saying, unless a celebrity really loves that omelet you made and shares it.
Oh, I see. Sure.
See, you got to be a power user. They call it a power user on.
Yeah, I got you.
Like, Anyhow, I digress.
So, you know what? I'm baffled by what gets a ton of hits. It's just weird. Like I just said, a guy cooks a steak in a coffee pot.
But think about this, though.
65 million
coffee
views.
pot's kind of cool.
Well, yeah, but 65 million viewers cool?
I mean, everyone's going to be doing it now. That's going to be
Oh, really? Oh,
See,
yeah.
you need to come up with a challenge, Doug.
Oh, my God.
Right now is the Sprite challenge.
No. Okay, hold on.
Smart enough.
Doug, you need to cook a steak with
what?
With an ironing board and an iron.
Exactly.
Ironing board and an iron. Okay. See, we just gave our listeners ideas to make a bunch of money. Oh, okay, so here's another question, Alex. If you have a hit video that's only a hit video for Facebook, right? Because I would imagine there's certain videos that just go nowhere on YouTube and then they put them on Facebook and they go crazy. Does Facebook pay people?
I heard for a very short amount of time they were paying some people to upload YouTube videos that they already had on their channel to Facebook.
Okay.
As far as I know, you get nothing. I mean, yay! Someone thumbs up your video and leaves a comment.
Yeah.
So if you get 200 million views on a video, you get nothing.
I mean, hopefully you got something to sell to them because they're not
right.
Oh,
hopefully it's an ad of some type.
You better make a T-shirt quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're going to do I'm going to cook a steak on your ATV muffler.
I think you should.
On yours. I'll drive up with a raw steak.
You should.
We'll cook it on
should.
your
That'd be a lot of fun.
train vehicle, and
But who eats it?
it'll go viral. And Joel has to eat it then.
Oh, I'd have to eat it too.
And
I
we're
was
not
thinking
going to
that maybe you would eat it and go, this is good steak when it's all done.
Oh my God. But I was amazed. I'm trying to figure out the whole universe.
You're not getting it, Doug. We're old. Okay. That's part of our problem is it was brought to my attention by a teenager that I don't get it because I'm old.
We grew up on Leave It to Beaver.
We grew up a way different things, So yeah, we're like, what the hell is this? It's a 5-second video about nothing.
But
who
if you
cares? Then they're like, oh my God, look at this.
You can take a magnet, a giant magnet, throw it in the water, pull the rope up, pull up a fork, and get 25 million views.
Okay.
I'm serious. There was actually
I hear you. Those videos probably, and this is the sad part, this is another thing that was kind of brought to my attention. Those videos are in the upper echelon of TikTok have more views than all of the, like, for instance, the Monster Quest shows combined.
Oh, I know. It's insane.
I mean, it's sickening. I mean, because it was people were talking about that, about viewership and television, and think about this: you get 25 million views of a man cooking a steak in a coffee pot.
65 million.
65 million. There's not a TV show out there that would not kill.
Oh, I know that. The Super Bowl would kill to have those kind of numbers.
Right. So it's just insane.
There's only 400 million people in the US.
What's funny is nobody knows what's going to hit and what's not going to hit.
Yeah.
You know.
Anyhow.
But here's the problem, though, that steak guy, everyone forgets about him. It's a 3-second video, and they're on to the next video.
Okay, but here's the deal. These videos are getting so many views, and other people are thinking, oh, we'll fake one. We'll fake a cheating wife video. And you can tell they're so fake. You just know the acting's horrible, or if they have a hit viral video, then they try to fake more of them.
Yeah.
And you can tell they're horribly fakey. They're terrible.
I don't know, man. I don't know.
Oh, the fake prank videos are so cringe.
And they're fake. Yeah. They're totally fake because there's no way you would get sued and arrested if you actually did that to somebody.
True. Very true.
I mean, okay, there was one where there was a guy just, those coin pusher machines, put a quarter in, it pushes the other ones and they fall into a tray. I'm like, even that, millions and millions. It's like, dude, go up to the bowling alley. They have one of those machines in every bowling alley and do it yourself. You know what I mean? I don't know. I don't get it.
It just befuddles you, right, Doug? Because it does me.
You're not going to learn. But I love talking about this stuff only because it's amazing. A cow playing with a ball, 35 million views.
That's kind of cool, though. The cow play.
Oh, I know it's cool. No, I never said this stuff wasn't cool. But it's not like, why does it attract that many people?
I've never seen it. I mean, I'm going to look that video up after this.
Yeah, there you go. Give them another view.
Well, I have not seen it either. This is the first time hearing about it.
Okay. Joel, you gonna look it up?
Now I am, because now I gotta see why the cow was playing the ball.
There'll be this huge scientific breakthrough, cool scientific whatever, no views. 63 views on a breakthrough for cancer.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird. It's kind of weird. Anyhow.
It's true.
So anyhow, to remind our people listening, we do have guest Mike Ricksecker on tonight, and we're going to talk about shadow people, which, by the way, after I watched one of his videos, I realized maybe I've seen one of these things back in the 70s.
Yeah.
But I actually had to watch his video to go, oh, maybe that wasn't what I thought it was. Maybe it was a shadow person.
Who knows?
So it matched up.
Because apparently, well, he'll tell us, but there's different types. And then he can explain what types there are.
There's a few different phenomena of shadow people.
I have a shadow in my wallet.
You do? From being broke or what?
Being empty, yeah. It's just a shadow in there.
A shadow
of money.
Shadow wallet.
It's what?
It's a shadow wallet.
Shadow wallet, yes.
Yes. There you
go. So anyhow, we were talking about the Darwin Awards last year. Well, I want to talk about the opposite of the Darwin Awards, and that is the Survival Awards, which are, oh my God, insane, because I want to talk about a woman who fell from a plane 10,000 feet after the plane got hit by lightning and lived, and to this day is still working every day.
Wow.
And had nothing. Man. She landed.
Where'd this happen?
It happened in Lima, Peru, all verified. So she's flying to Lima, Peru with her mother. And the plane, and it's, I'll tell you even the airlines. It's Alonza Airlines. Alonza. This can all be confirmed. So she's flying to Lima, Peru on Alonza Airlines in 1971. This happened quite a long time ago. But this woman is still working, by the way. Talk about somebody not claiming disability. So she's heading there. Lightning hits the plane. The plane breaks up instantly, which is rare because normally there's a Faraday cage effect, on an airplane.
Yeah.
So that the electricity stays on the outside. We all have probably heard of Faraday cages. Mm-hmm. Why you don't normally get killed in your car if lightning hits it, because you're surrounded by metal. Except my Jeep's got a plastic roof, and I was thinking about that the other day. Anyhow, why do I always buy cars with plastic roofs? Okay. So
we're on the big screen, Doug.
Oh my God. Okay. I hope I'm not in the Darwin Awards because I got a plastic roof through a lightning storm. Okay. So the plane breaks up and she's still trapped in her seat. She's buckled in, one of the few apparently that was either buckled in. Her whole row shoots out of the airplane, the whole row of seats. But it's just her sitting because apparently the other people in her row didn't have their seatbelts on.
So they all got sucked out. They're gone.
So they're gone. I mean, they're just gone. She's free falling to the ground.
In a row of seats.
In a whole row of seats.
Oh, man.
Could you imagine that? Just thinking, oh my God, this is going to hurt. Or even if you're, this just happened, you just think of all those poor people and children and who knows.
Yeah, right.
And there's jungle below this, where this plane broke up. Okay. So she's descending. Apparently the seat must have slowed her descent enough. And the seat rotated just perfect where the bottom hit the trees as she started going through the tree canopy. And she must have hit a good tree or trees to slow her down, her descent. She hits the ground. She's out for 2 days.
Oh, wow.
2 days gone. In the bottom of the jungle. Just think about that. And then she wakes up, obviously unbuckles her seatbelt, and she has to trek for 11 days.
Jeez.
To get help. I mean, this is not her
through the jungle. Because
in the jungle.
Peru, that's the jungle.
Oh, that's a serious jungle. Okay. But just by luck, her mother, who had now perished in the plane, had taught her survival skills in the jungle. And she remembered all these survival skills. So she gets out, she gets rescued, and she recovers for a little while, and she goes and takes her mom's job, takes over her mother's job, which is in a research station. It's called the Panguna Research Station. I would love to get this woman on.
That'd be an amazing story to hear.
And apparently she's still working there. So it's a really cool story. But that's kind of the opposite. When it's not your day, ain't nothing going to kill you. Because you've heard about people that get in a car accident, the ambulance will rescue them, get them in, resuscitate them, and then the ambulance will get hit by a semi.
Oh, yeah.
It's like there's so many cases like that. It's like that's their
kind of like the movie Final Destination. When death wants you, it's going to get you.
Yeah, exactly. So,
and the opposite's true for her. If it's just not her time, it's not her time.
Yeah, but that's really an amazing. Anyhow, she was 17 when it happened too.
17.
Just a kid.
Throw that out there. Yeah, throw that out there.
Just a kid.
So I read about the craziest thing. I was on charlesfort.org, which is really a Facebook page that a friend of mine's got. And there was an animal in there I'd never heard of, a weird cryptid animal. Just really bizarre. Because we've all heard of the goatman, pigman.
Oh yeah, the monkey ape things now.
The monkey dog?
Yes, the monkey dog.
Okay.
That's what it was.
Well, this is the snake dog.
Oh.
The snake dog. Do you want me to pull it up?
Yeah, pull that up. It's got a fair use here.
Oh.
It's amazing drawing. But here's what's cool. Okay, Alex. We don't want to break the 3-second rule. Thank you. Okay. Wasn't that weird looking?
What's that?
It's like, what the heck?
Yeah.
But yet it looks
3-second rule?
like,
Hell, he could got rid of that in 1 second. I think it was ugly.
Reminds me of a hairy dinosaur.
Kind of does. Kind of
here's
does.
where
Kind
it's
of Brontosaurus almost looking.
Right, but
with the
here's
neck
where
and
it's
all.
cool. 2 people in 2 separate cars saw it.
Two witnesses.
2 witnesses,
Two
not one. And here, let's see if
That's
I can find
100% better than one.
Okay, so the site I got it from was charlesfort.org.
Where? Charles Ford?
Yeah,
Where did this
Charles
happen?
Fort. Charles
In
Fort,
States or
Alex, because you're so young, was early writer, early and probably the original paranormal investigator way back in England. I think he lived in England, I believe. But maybe not. I don't know. My dad used to read me Charles Fort books at night for bed.
Yeah, he was
stories.
about the same era as like Harry Price and all those guys from way, way back in the
Way
1800s.
back,
Yeah.
But he investigated and he wrote stories of things like fish falling from the sky.
High strangeness. Yeah.
Just high strangeness. Yeah, he was like the original. So they'll call things 14. It involves the paranormal or weird. But anyhow, so here's the story. 2 separate drivers saw a strange beast run out into the road the morning of May 24th, 1996. Sheila Charles was simply taking her son Shane to school in a small town of God, I have no idea. Megala. I think it's Australian actually. When a weird dog-like creature ran out in front of her car, she swerved to avoid the animal and unfortunately went off the road and into a canyon. So she crashed her car. Luckily, no one was badly hurt. The driver of the car behind her also confirmed seeing the creature. The monster looked like a dog with the head of a snake. So it could be described as a snake-headed dog.
Yeah.
The head was sleek and serpentine-like. So that's just, and its eyes glowed red too. And it had shaggy black fur. I mean, that's a lot of weird descriptors.
That is a lot of strangeness going on there.
So I'm like, God, that's so cool.
All right.
It'd be my luck to see that thing.
That would be your luck. No, and has it been ever seen? I wonder if there's any other reports since.
No, but there's so many things like that are just kind of one-off. One-off, either in an area, and they end up getting a nickname like the Van Meter Visitor. In Van Meter, Iowa. Just weird.
Just fleeting and done, and it's just a one-time occurrence.
But in many cases, there's multiple witnesses.
Multiple witnesses. Yeah.
It's strange. Real strange.
Like the Wisconsin flying cat critter humanoid encounter.
What the hell is that?
That's a winged thing that looks kind of like a cat in the face. And that's the thing. What's cool is that's what I saw. Yeah. No, that's what me and Yvette saw.
Yeah, on the highway?
On
the one 35 million.
It swooped at our car.
So it was more like a cat than it was.
Well, it was shiny. It didn't have fur. But it did have, now that I think about it, because I've never heard that description of it, it did have kind of a cat-like look.
Yeah.
With the high, the pointed ears. I guess you could construe the face like a cat or a bat.
Yeah. I've often wondered.
And they're showing a tail. They're showing that they must have seen a tail. I haven't. But we actually found those people that saw this thing and put them in Monster Quest. So the father and son.
Yeah.
But anyhow, that's kind of one and done,
Yeah. That is nuts, Doug.
Oh, did we have Reed on tonight, Alex?
No, we did not.
Oh, okay. Is he ever coming on?
Yeah. I think I'm gonna have to check.
Alex is like,
I think Alex forgot.
Put the poor man on the spot, you know.
Good. No, it's that's okay. We'll never get that. We'll never get him on.
What do you mean we'll never get him on?
We'll get him on.
He's got a cool Bigfoot story. Yeah, it's got a really cool Bigfoot story. Poor Reed.
Next week.
Poor Reed. Okay, well, no. Next week I've got Jim Myers giving us an update.
It's true. That is true.
So you can't do next week either.
Yeah.
See how this goes? Then the week
after, we could have more than one special guest.
We can, you know, we could always do a, dare I say it, 2-hour special where we don't do this part of it. We just have 2 guests.
Yeah. Yeah, we can.
Like a double header.
God.
Joel, you'd miss it too much.
I would miss it. I would miss talking about TikTok and steaks and coffee pots,
weather balloons
and stuff like that. No, but getting back to what we're talking about, that is very odd. That I shouldn't say new cryptid creature because it was in the 80s they saw this.
96.
So it's been a little while.
Yeah, it's been a while.
I'll be curious to see if there's any other sightings around there.
Yeah, well, I don't know where this is. Maybe somebody in chat can look it up. It's Magala.
Magilla, maybe? I don't know. But
I don't
know.
I have no idea how you pronounce it. It sounds Australian.
Yep. Hey, Donald. By the way, thank you for saying hi. Hi to everybody else in the chat room.
Yeah, that's all I have. I have nothing else.
That's it?
Nothing.
That's all you got?
That's it.
The well is dry?
The well is dry.
What?
I was lazy.
Are you okay?
I didn't write anything up.
Oh, my Lord.
Joel, now's your chance.
Now's my chance to shine. My time to shine is here.
No, I mean it has been a weird news week. But it's all been depressing news.
Well, that's the thing. Lately, it has been depressing news. You're not wrong.
Yeah.
You know, and like some of the news too is like, I don't care. Like the Johnny Depp trial, right? Exactly. Everybody I run into is, are you watching the Johnny Depp trial? No, I'm not.
Right.
I don't care if she pooped in your bed.
Yeah.
I could care less.
Oh my God.
Because she did. But who cares? Who cares?
Yeah, there was a lot of people that watched that. I don't know. God, I don't know why they picked that trial.
Well, who cares? You know, it's Johnny Depp. Okay, I get it. I understand the allure of it because, you know, he is who he is. But it's just stupid.
I'll watch it when they make a movie out of it.
You know they will, too. You know they will. And it won't even be Johnny Depp playing Johnny Depp. They'll get someone else to play Johnny Depp.
Who are they going to have play Johnny Depp?
Yeah, get Keith Richards. Because by that time... Yeah, and then what else is going on in the world right now?
I have no idea. I have none. Zero.
You're tapped out?
I've been busy all week.
See, I rely on you to do this
that's good.
half hour.
Okay, fine.
I'm gonna have to start prepping.
Oh, you have 50 shows of content built up.
Oh my God, yeah.
What is there to say?
Tons of things to say.
Okay.
Where's
you heard about the inmate that ran away with the officer guard?
I did.
That's beautiful. Enough said there. Leaked memo. The leaked memo from the Supreme Court. That's kind of weird.
That is true.
They're going to obviously. I'm sure they'll be able to find out who it was that leaked it.
Oh, you know they will.
They're gonna be in some trouble.
You know, they're leaking things, and then of course like you're saying, you have the inmate on the run with his love interest. You know, which is stupid because you know you're gonna get caught. Where the hell are you gonna run?
Of course,
you know,
on
every stupid
every website in America.
Exactly. It's just insanity is what it is.
I don't know how people get to be that age. And then suddenly they go.
And be that stupid?
Now I'm going to be really stupid.
I think stupid was always in them. It just hasn't come to the surface yet.
You think that the society has cradled them and coddled them so great they've survived, huh? Okay.
I think there's some truth to that. Because stupidity. Anyone that works retail for a living could tell you hours of just stupid people content. I'm telling you. Right. Anyway, I mean, it just there is no lack of stupidity in this world.
That's viral TikTok content.
So I'm looking I'm looking at an article now, and of course, it's got one of those little ads. It says ad. They don't want you to see that it's an ad. Then it says exposed, the fakest reality shows of all time. So the article is fake about the fake.
Yeah.
Only in America can you have an article about fake on a fake.
Only in America. Yeah.
Fake. Everything's fake about fake. It makes no sense.
Right. Makes no sense to me either. Makes no sense at all.
No, it's amazing. The security footage of security cameras work perfect for the Alabama prison break.
They do.
But they never work. They never
work any other time.
Any otherwhere.
My God, they're working right there.
It's the only place.
I think we're it's about time to go to break, guys.
Yeah, I think so. Thank God, because we ran out.
He ran out of content. What the hell?
Yeah, but that's funny in itself. We just stand there and look at each other. Kind of funny. Watch Alex smile.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
All right, so we're going to go to break. We're going to come back with Mike Ricksecker.
Okay, awesome.
All right.
I'm excited.
All right, so guys, we got a really special guest tonight. Mike Ricksecker is the author of the best-selling book, A Walk in the Shadows, a complete guide to the shadow people, as well as other books. He's 8 historic paranormal books and an historic tomb of Alaska's Mysterious Triangle. He has appeared on multiple television shows and programs, such as The Paranormal Historian, including Travel Channel's The Alaska Triangle, History Channel's Ancient Aliens, Discovery Plus's Fright Club, Animal Planet's The Haunted, the Bio Channel's My Ghost Story, and many more. So I'd like to have a special welcome from Mike.
Hey, Mike, how you doing, man?
Hey, doing pretty well. Thanks for having me so much tonight.
Good. Yeah. Shadow people, huh? We're gonna get to that. But that's a very intriguing subject matter.
Yeah.
So, Mike, guess what I did before I went to bed last night? I was watching some of your videos.
Oh, great. Thank you.
That's not a good thing to do.
He had nightmares.
Maybe not with some of them, yeah.
No, I think the first one I watched was, and you've got to get into some detail for us.
Sure.
Is the different types of shadow people. Because back in the 70s, I woke up and there was this thing with a hood standing kind of in the corner of the room. It wasn't a very big bedroom back then. Standing there just staring at me. Was that a shadow person, maybe?
Yeah, a type of shadow person. I had a very similar experience when I was about 8 years old. But before we get into that, what I really wanted to talk to you guys about this evening is the Johnny Depp trial.
Yeah, of course you
do. Goodbye, guys. Been wonderful.
Oh, by the way, Mike. By the way, Mike, Alex said that you look like Tom Cruise.
I appreciate that.
There you go.
There is actually a funny story with my son.
Alex turned red because he really did say that about you.
That's funny.
Hey, Maverick, how you doing?
Hey, I mean, true story. When my oldest son was 4 years old. It was right around the time that the first Mission Impossible movie came out. And if you guys remember the movie poster for that, it was Tom Cruise, but he's kind of silhouetted in the photo.
Yeah.
And we're walking into the mall, and he points right at that movie poster and says, "Daddy." I'm like, that's awesome. Now, where's the paycheck?
Yeah, right.
Well, there you
It's
go.
not just me. It is not just me.
Right.
Well,
We've
take
aged a little differently,
Well,
but
Mike,
back then it was,
Yeah, exactly. Well, looking like Maverick or Tom Cruise aside,
So
tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, how'd you get into this? I mean, what brought you to shadow people? You just don't wake up one morning going, that darn shadow people thing. That sounds like something interesting I like to look at, because it sounds like you had a lot of personal experiences with that.
Right. Yeah. It was actually not waking up one morning and saying that. It was waking up one night to a shadow person in my bedroom. It's kind of the tale I started down before I started joking around a little bit. But yeah, I was about 8 years old, woke up in the middle of the night. There's this tall, dark figure standing in the corner of my bedroom. I had no idea at that time that this was a shadow person, or that's what they were called, or anything like that. All I thought at the time was there's an intruder in the house. Somebody broke in, they're in my bedroom, and they're about to kill me or something like that. That's about what you think at that age. Fortunately, I'm still alive to tell the tale, which is great. But it did do something very unusual and did get physical. So it approached my bed, and I'm trying to scream. My mouth opens up and nothing's coming out because I'm just too terrified. Leans over the bed. I'm staring up at this blank black face. There's no eyes, no nose, no mouth, nothing. It's just blackness. Then the thing took me by the wrists, crossed my arms across my body, and ran off down the hall, of all places, into a closet. At that point, I found my voice, found my legs, ran off to my parents' bedroom, screaming about what had happened. They're trying to console me, calm me down, trying to tell me that I just had a bad dream, but I'd been awake for this whole thing. This was not a bad dream, and that was the first really significant experience. I had some other experiences. We moved out of that house when I was 13 years old, and I would never call that a haunted house. That was just kind of like a one-off thing that happened. This other house that we moved from Massachusetts to Ohio. There was, for the first 4 months that we lived in that house, there was this shadow entity. It was more translucent in nature. It was different than what I was seeing, or what I had seen when I was 8 years old, which was a lot more solid. This one at the new house, it was, like I said, more translucent. It would just kind of peer in the doorway to my bedroom, and then when I'd look at it, it would take off running. And this happened several times as I'm like unpacking boxes, putting things away, and the thing would kind of peer in the doorway, and I'd look at it and off it would go. So after this happened several times, like I said, over the course of several days, I decided to ask my mother about it. Maybe she thought it was a little bit more, mature at that time. I don't know how mature a 13-year-old is, but, she told me that she had also seen this thing, and she was kind of nonchalant about it. She didn't seem very concerned. So, a couple good things came out of that. One, okay, I affirmation that I'm not crazy. I was seeing this thing. And two, mom's not worried about it, so must not be bad. So I decided to get playful with the thing and called him Tom, like peeping Tom. So anytime he'd, peer in my door, I'd say, "Hi, Tom," and off he'd run. And like I said, that activity lasted for about 3 or 4 months, and then just kind of subsided. So I chalked it up to something that was there at the house, was curious about the new family that moved in, deemed that we were okay, and it just went about its business.
That's crazy. So you would look at it, you'd never get a totally dead look at it. It would run before you could. It's always out of the peripheral vision.
Yeah, I mean, I would get a little bit of a look at it because I could see it like running down the hall when I would turn and look at it. But yeah, there is that thing where you see these entities out of the corner of your eye, out of the periphery, and that's called averted vision. The eyes are made up of rods and cones, and the rods on the side take in more light than straight on. The cones are more like your high def camera of your eye. And so like stargazers will use averted vision to look at celestial objects with the naked eye, or comets and things like that, because the rods will take in more light. So they kind of have trained themselves to look out of the periphery. And so that's kind of the same thing here is we're getting a glimpse out of the periphery, and we turn and look, and it seems like it vanished, but it didn't really vanish. It's just the cones aren't going to take in the same as the rods.
So, Mike, is there a difference between a shadow person and a shadow entity and a shadow figure? I've heard all three.
Well, there's a lot of different types. I mean, we use these different terms: shadow being, shadow entity, shadow person. I mean, we just kind of interchange the terms. So there's different types. We got humanoid figures, the hat wearing entities. We've got hooded figures, mist whips, crawlers. All different types. And there's people ask me, okay, what is a shadow person? There's not really one definition to it because we have all these different types. Each seems to have their own different abilities and agendas and things like this. So it really just comes down to, okay, what is the specific entity that you're observing or interacting with doing?
So have other people been reported being touched by these shadow beings like you were?
Yeah, some people do report being touched. It's not as often. It's not as common as some others, where usually what ends up happening is the thing is just standing there staring, watching and observing. Other people will see them, kind of like that second one that I saw where they see the thing run off down the hall. Physical interaction can happen. It's just not as common. And I've even heard one interesting story that I include in my book, A Walk in the Shadows, where the individual woke up, and it's kind of the classic old hag syndrome where he wakes up, the old hag is sitting on his chest. She's in a shadowy form, and he was able to actually physically grab her himself, and he threw her off of him onto the floor. They went rolling onto the floor together. So, quite an interesting tale.
So this shadow had weight and mass.
Yeah.
That he could actually feel and then grab it and throw it. Interesting.
Yeah. Oh, there's another one that's really interesting. It's not necessarily a shadow person, but related to the whole old hag syndrome phenomena, where the woman woke up, there was a dire wolf on her chest, and she's trying to fight with the thing, get it off. Her husband wakes up. He didn't see the wolf, but what he saw were the impressions of the paw prints in her shoulders.
Wow, man, that was so freaky. And most people report these when they're in bed. That's most of the reports are when they're slumbering or just waking up. Any thoughts on that?
I mean, there are a lot of reports where they happen in bed, but also not. We see a lot of reports where they'll be doing something in the living room, and boom, they notice a shadow walk down the hall. We go out on paranormal investigations, and we're wide awake walking around a building, and there's a shadow walking over there. I've seen rolling black smoke. You would call that some sort of shadow entity morph into the apparition of a little girl, and that was down a hallway of an old hotel. So we see these things happen in a lot of different situations.
Sure.
Are there more sightings of these things in the country or in the inner city, or is there any noticeable data difference?
I mean, they're all over. You could say and make a case for that. There's going to be more sightings where there's kind of a more populous area, just of the sheer fact that there's more people available to report the activity.
Sure.
So it's when people try to relate the whole, well, because I'll get asked, there seem to be more sightings of these things nowadays, and it's like, well, okay, there's more people for one. There's a higher population these days now than there was 20 years ago, 40 years ago.
And more of a willingness to talk about it.
Yes, and that exactly. There's more of a willingness to talk about it. People are more open these days. It's one of the good things that's come out of all the television shows on TV. That because there's pros and cons to them, but they have shown people that, hey, there are other people in this world that are having these experiences. You're not alone. So people are more forthcoming with their experiences these days.
God, that's just freaky.
All right, we got to do it. We got to plunge into it. Mike, we got to talk about the Hat Man.
Okay.
What's going on with that guy? I mean, there seems to be one specific shadow entity that comes up time and time and time again, and that is the Hat Man.
Yeah, people want to know about the hats. And you know what's funny? I've seen a lot of different types of shadow entities, over the years, and that's actually the one I have not seen. I've seen the crawler, I've seen the mist, I've seen the wisp, I've seen the humanoid figures, all of that. I've not yet seen the Hat Man. So everybody else is seeing them except me, which is funny. But to answer your question, yeah, there's a lot of interesting theories and ideas as to what these things actually are. Are they trying to disguise themselves as humans? Most people report them as some of the more nefarious types of shadows, and not all shadows are mean, nasty, and malevolent, but the hat figure seems to be more of that type. Although you do see reports as well of ones that just kind of stand and watch and observe. There's different style hats. A lot of people see kind of the fedora style hat, sometimes with or without the trench coat. Same with the top hat, sometimes with or without a cape. You hear wide brim hats, others that are, I heard one tale of a archer style hat, like something out of Robin Hood. And then the question becomes, again, what's the deal with the hat itself? Some people think it's some form of technology, that there's a technology under the hat that's causing them to go into a shadowy form.
But I'm just going to interrupt. Are all the hats old style hats? Or are there, any new style, like a baseball cap, Hat Man?
I've not really heard one of a baseball cap. And if we say, people don't really wear hats anymore. So they would kind of have to be. I mean, you would say baseball hats a newer style, but I mean, baseball hats have been around for over 100 years.
Yeah, they have.
So
but the Hat Man's always got some kind of a top hat type or a wide brim hat.
Right.
Very, very unique style. That's so weird. I mean, you wonder why.
So, there's a lot of different, okay. So let me tell you this tale. Albert K. Bender. So he founded the International Flying Saucer Bureau in 1952. The organization blew up big within the first year. Went international. It had offices in the UK, in Australia. Within a year's time, I think this is 1952. We didn't have the internet back then. Long distance calls were expensive. So for him to be able to do this in a short period of time was really impressive. He had his newsletter he was putting out and all this stuff. And all of a sudden, in 1953, he decides, boom, shut it down immediately. And nobody really understood and knew why. There were ideas that maybe the Men in Black got involved, and there was a book published in the mid-1950s by Gray Barker in which he made that assertion about Albert K. Bender. Well, in the early 1960s, Bender finally came forth with his own book to explain what had happened, and it was sort of a Men in Black incident, but you could have a couple different takes on it. And the story that Bender told was that he had come home one night, walked into his bedroom, and all of a sudden through his wall morphed these three dark, shadowy beings wearing the hats with glowing eyes and smelling like sulfur. Now, the tale he tells, and I hear that story, and I'm automatically thinking, oh, these are the shadow people. These are, the hat men that we always talk about. The way he tells the story is that, well, these were actually extraterrestrials that were warning him off of all of his research into the UFO phenomena. And they had this establishment down in Antarctica where they were harvesting resources and all that for a period of 15 years. And he was not allowed to say anything until they left the planet. And that's when he wrote his book. So he says they're extraterrestrials. Other people hear the story and they say it's the Men in Black. So it's almost kind of like, you're whatever lens you're kind of viewing the story through, then that's what you're going to go with, whether it's paranormal, ET, or Men in Black.
You mentioned smells. Have you ever smelled anything in association?
It's sometimes you might get that kind of sulfury, rotten egg type smell. But then you also kind of wonder sometimes, if you're like on an investigation in an old historic building, am I just smelling the old building? But somebody might be in their home, in their house, and all of a sudden get a nasty smell like that associated with these different entities, and those might be some of the more nefarious type of shadows.
Yeah,
interesting. Because there was a time when I was a kid. I was probably 9 years old. I was with my sister, and one day we smelled like somebody had lit a match. Quite strong, and we're searching the whole house looking for maybe something burning. So is that a sulfur associated with ghosts and hat men and shadow people and all that, or is it associated with something else?
I mean, they can be. We get some interesting smells with a lot of this different type of phenomena. So then the question becomes, okay, is that something with the energy? Because everything, has personal resonance, vibration, frequency, some sort of energy associated with it. So is that the energy from these beings interacting with the environment and creating a smell off of some element that happens to be in that area?
So interesting. You also wonder about, the other inconsistencies, the red eye glow.
Yeah.
And yet there's other creatures like Bigfoot that are reported sometimes with red eye glow, other times not. It's just it's as if these other characteristics are meant to just confuse us.
Yeah, the red eyes, that's another one that gets reported sometimes, not all the times. I mean, any of them that I've seen, they've just had the blank black faces. But you get and it's not always red either. Sometimes you get reports of all kinds of different colors with green, blue, yellow, purple, kind of, the whole color of the rainbow, really.
Yeah,
But the one
ones
that's most common is red. Yeah.
The ones that I've seen, I've never seen glowing eyes associated with them. But I've heard yellow eyes, I've heard red eyes, I've heard you name it. The eyes, had glowing eyes, and usually red is the one that you read on, that is in there, but sometimes yellow. Sometimes I read one report where it's pink eyes, which I thought was kind of funny. Pink eye, huh? But it kind of makes you wonder also, is there different races of these creatures? I mean, is there one?
And that's exactly what I would say. There are different races, different types. They're basically different species that are using kind of the same energetic modality to come into, whether it's our world, our dimension, whatever it is wherever it is that they're coming from to here. Because each one they're all coming from different locations. Again, it's hard to say, this is a shadow person because they're looking shadowy, but some are coming from another dimension. Some are just human spirits that are still around us. Some are ET, some may be time travelers, some may be astral projections. So there's a lot of different things that they could be, but they're all coming off as a shadow like that because of the way their energy is being, how it's, I guess, mutating or forming.
How it's being
into
perceived by
existence.
us too.
Yeah.
The eye of the beholder of the energy.
Exactly. Yeah. And each of us has our own personal resonance and vibration. The human body resonates within a certain frequency range, but we're all a little different. So we're all going to perceive them a little bit differently too. When I mentioned that rolling black smoke morphing into the apparition of a little girl, when she was as that apparition, we all saw her a little differently. Like I saw her fully formed from the head down to, maybe about her knees, and then she started to dissipate away. There were 5 of us that saw her, but others saw her like fully formed at the feet, and then she started to dissipate away at the head. And that's because, again, we each vibrated at a different frequency, as was she. She had her own personal resonance vibration as well.
Yeah, I've been in situations where I've been witnessing, hell, I saw a full body apparition and no one else saw it. I'm like, you guys had to have seen that. No, I saw this, or I heard this, or it was all a little bit different, but I was the only one to see the full body, but everybody else had like a cold spot in that area. So you're right. I mean, it's just different perceptions on us because of our own frequencies.
Exactly. That's one of the challenging, things in this field is, like you said, you could be standing right next to somebody and see something and the other person doesn't. So that makes it challenging.
So are these things to be feared, Mike? I mean, do you think there's a danger factor in seeing these in your home?
Depends on the shadow. There are people out there that try to say that, all of them. I'm sorry. There are people out there who try to say all of them are, mean, nasty, nefarious, and evil, but that's just not the case. Some of them are just somebody's, great Aunt Trudy or whatever.
Sure.
Most of them are just rather benign. They're standing there watching, observing, taking in information, which of course is creepy, and it's invading your space, and it's an intrusion because you didn't ask for it, but they're actually not doing anything harmful. There are some that are actually benevolent that will do things to help people. And then, yes, you do have the ones that are nasty and nefarious and will do things to harm people. So it's just really specific to each shadow. So
is there no way to know until it's too late?
Thanks, Alex. Another thank
well, I mean, okay, there are 5 of us sitting here in this chat right now, or 4 of us. I'm sorry.
No,
Where'd I learn?
Where'd I learn behind me?
Where'd I learn to count? Right. Well, there's 5 little boxes on the screen. The other one is myself again. So down there in the studio. But okay, so there's 4 of us right here. Could somebody in the chat point out which one of us is the mean, nasty, evil, and nefarious one? Just by looking at them.
All day, it's Doug.
Yeah. Actually, I think it's Alex.
It's that old adage. It's that old adage. You can't judge a book by its cover. So just by looking at a shadow, you can't say you're a nasty.
Well, no more than we can look at an average individual and pick out the serial killer.
Right. Exactly.
I mean, you know, because
so they're like people. You just don't know.
Yeah.
They act. Now, what happens if you are like you have a harmful shadow? Let's say in your residence, is there anything you can do besides move and put it on the MLS?
He wants to run away, you know.
Well, you can do a cleansing, and if that's not something you're comfortable with, you can bring in people, to help do that. I mean, that's what we did for the case that was on for the television show The Haunted. Was that about 11, 12 years ago now? And they had a nasty red-eyed shadow entity. We never actually saw it with red eyes. I saw the mist. There was like a big black cloud in the room, but she kept seeing the entity with red eyes. Other family members kept seeing the entity with red eyes, and there was definitely an oppression in that house. And so we had Carl Johnson, demonologist, come out. We did a full cleansing of the house. Ridiculously crazy night when we did that, but ever since that evening, they've been fine. The family's been good.
So was there a lot of resistance when that happened?
Yes, there was. So just kind of give you the story here. When we were doing that cleansing, we had the family wait outside in the side yard, and we're going through the house. But the adult daughter of the family, Taliesin, who was having the most trouble, came in to use the restroom. After she was done doing her thing, she ended up in the master bedroom and kind of just talking at one of these walls, asking questions like, why are you here? Why do you keep doing this? Why are you terrorizing us? Those sorts of questions, even though we didn't see anything, but she obviously was interacting with something. So Carl decided to do a blessing over her. So as he does this, all of a sudden she just bends over as if she just got punched in the gut. She exclaims like, "Oh," and falls to the ground. So we pick her back up, get her on the bed. She's okay. I listened back over the audio later on the next day, and there was an EVP right there that said "die" right when she got punched in the gut. That was the first big thing. Following that, as we're making sure that she's okay and we're good to go, the back door to the master bedroom starts blowing open. It just boom, blows open. We shut it. It blows open again. Shut it again. It blows open again. We had to deadbolt the thing shut. Carl does a blessing over the door. Then the tri-field meter that we had set up in her bedroom by the closet where she was seeing this entity many times, that starts going off like crazy. So we go and check that out. So we continue on with doing the cleansing of the house, pushing this thing outside. We get into the backyard, and Carl continues his blessing in the backyard. The wind starts kicking up like crazy. The cats are running around us in circles. And finally, the wind just stops. Carl falls to a knee. Everything is suddenly extremely calm. Okay, we've done it. We go into the side yard. We're talking with the family. We're telling them that we finished up. Everything should be good to go. And we make some remarks about, well, that wind got really crazy, didn't it? And they're like, what wind? Now, this is a small house, is a small yard. It's like, while we're doing this in the backyard, they're like right over there. Somehow they didn't catch any of this wind when it was swirling around us. So it was a really bizarre night.
Like how do you even process that? Like, how do you handle that? I mean, how do you not just bolt out of the house?
That's what we're there for. We're there to help.
Right.
So,
Right.
I mean, the older son of that family over the years, because they had been experiencing things off and on for like 20 years. And the crazy thing is they never talked about it during that time until finally got to a point where one of the family members at the dinner table said, I keep seeing this. Have you guys been seeing this? All of a sudden, all these stories came out over a 20-year period of time. But during that time, the older son had moved out, and one of the reasons why he moved out was he had seen that entity with red eyes. He had experiences in his bedroom where he described one night as it was in an invisible wrestling match going on in his room, where he heard these two men fighting and struggling with each other, and things were getting knocked over, but he couldn't see anybody in the room, even though all these things were happening. So yeah, he did leave the house and moved out. But as an investigator and somebody who's trying to help the family, we're in there for the long haul.
Yeah. It's not a one-night ordeal. It is a long.
No, that was. Yeah, that was several nights that we did that. I mean, the television show, because it's TV, makes it look like they called us. We went in there, did an investigation, deemed this thing, was evil and needed to go. And we called Carl Johnson and, did the cleansing. It was like, no, we investigated there many, many times.
So you believe that this particular case you're involved in, would you be willing to put the demonic tag on it?
That was the one case that I've worked on that's been deemed demonic, and I let Carl make that assertion that was a demonic case. And what's interesting, Carl's a good friend of mine. In talking with him since that time, and this has been about almost 12 years now. I've had him on my show a few times, and asked him the question, okay, Carl, when was the last time you actually had a case that you deemed demonic? This is what you do. People call you out and they want you to deal with these nasty manifestations. And he said, Mike, the last one that I would actually deem demonic was that one that you and I were on in Edmond, Oklahoma. And so that was a real eye opener for me, because here's a guy that, and I'm very hesitant to call a lot of different things demonic, because I'll have people reach out to me and say, I have a demon in my house. Well, why do you think you have a demon?
It is the paranormal buzzword.
It is. And that's the big thing on TV right now is things that are demonic. But yeah, people will say, well, the candle flew off my mantle, so it's a demon. Like, no, it's not a demon if a candle just flew off your mantle. Let's try to narrow that down. But but just the fact that but just the fact that here's a guy that this is what he does, and he's like, it's been 10 years since I was actually dealt with a demon. That's pretty eye-opening.
Does it feel like these entities, their level of influence is all over the map, like the strength of the entity?
Well, I mean, each has their own energy, their own motivations. So, we're talking demons there. So those are going to be things that are a little bit more powerful. Those are things that never, walk the earth as a human being. But then you also have, some nasty human spirits. Somebody that was a jerk in life is a jerk in the afterlife too, and they might not be as powerful as a demon, but they can still pack a bit of a punch. And then you have others that it seems like, they're struggling to kind of reach out and make themselves known and try to deliver some sort of message, and they're just, you get like little bits and pieces here and there, and so you get parts of that message, but not the full thing, because they haven't really figured out how to use, their energy to deliver it.
Yeah.
Has there been any patterns with the types of people that see these things that you've noticed? Just unofficially?
I mean, people that are, more open to this type of phenomena, of course, will tend to see more things because they've kind of opened up their energy to that. People who get more involved with it tend to see it more often. I think our bodies kind of get in tune to specific types of energies. So, like, I'll see more shadows than apparitions. That's not to me that I won't ever see apparitions.
How many have you seen, Mike? Let me guess.
I couldn't even count. I mean, that's like asking me how many paranormal investigations have you been in? I don't know.
Yeah.
Quite a few. I mean, there are some that really stand out in my mind, and those are the stories that I tell. And there's probably at least 10, 12 really significant ones. Those stories that I tell a lot.
Now, really quickly, I've experienced shadow people. I've talked to other people who've experienced them, but they're not all ghost related. Some are even UFO related.
Yeah.
Where they were having shadow people entities after a close encounter with the UFO.
Yeah, there's a lot of similarities between some of the accounts of shadow people sightings and ET sightings. When we go back to those moments of people, waking up and seeing an entity in their bed, or they're experiencing the sleep paralysis. Sometimes people say, well, it was a shadow entity. And sometimes people say, well, it was an ET. So there are a lot of similarities between this type of phenomena. And there's also the idea that some of these shadows that we witness, aren't ETs themselves. We talked a little bit about that with Albert K. Bender, but they could also be utilizing some sort of cloaking device. And, they might be down here trying to, again, watch, observe, study us, try to figure out, okay, is this a planet that we want to keep visiting, maybe try to inhabit or what have you? They want to know about the life forms that are on the planet. And they're utilizing a cloaking device so they're not seen, but not fully understanding the physiology of our eyes. It comes off as this shadowy form rather than completely cloaked.
Another researcher friend of mine that looks into this named Heidi Hollis. Her and I have had, I'm sure you're familiar with her work. We've had that same discussion about the ETs, and that people do seem to have that uptick. She experienced that for herself, where the grays were utilizing the shadow look to infiltrate.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just a type of cloaking scheme where they're trying to disguise themselves so that we don't see their true nature, or not even see them fully at all. But it doesn't. To our eyes, it still comes off as a little bit of a shadow. Or some people report seemed like a shimmer type man, that sort of thing.
Is there any science that can be applied? I mean, to try to, I don't know, film these things, capture. I mean, is there anything that's really out there that's proof on what these, what they look like? I guess, is there any video that's?
I mean, there's a lot of interesting, video captures, photography. I've captured, shadows on camera before. And of course, skeptics will try to say that it's not real or whatever, but it's like, you can see the shadow walking right across the floor. There was nobody else there with us. And, there it is on camera. So it's like, you either believe me or you don't.
Right.
So sometimes we capture these on cameras, but it's challenging.
So there is some of this on camera.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, that's cool. I'll have to. Is that one of something they can find on your YouTube channel?
So the Haunted Road Media YouTube channel, I have some videos on the Campbellsville grade school investigation. So there was a really significant shadow that we captured there. There's also a photo of it in my book, A Walk in the Shadows.
It's very cool. Well, what other paranormal things are you interested in, Mike, besides shadow people?
Yeah, a little bit of everything. Of course, my latest book is Alaska's Mysterious Triangle, which is kind of a follow-up to the Alaska Triangle television show that I was on, which includes a lot of different phenomena. So I do talk about shadows in Alaska, but we talk about extraterrestrials, missing planes, time travel. We get a little bit into the cryptid discussion there, and also make some parallels between what's going on in Alaska to significant things that are going on in Antarctica. The whole idea, the recent reports of the well, it's not actually recent, but there is a published paper here a few months ago about the parallel universe running in reverse based off of the neutrinos that they've observed down in Antarctica. And 2 years ago, when this information came out, the mainstream blasted these articles that were publishing this information. But now here's a published paper in a peer-reviewed journal that says, yep, parallel universe running here reverse time. So those things fascinate me.
So they do have some kind of a collider in Antarctica?
Basically what it is, they have the Anita Project and the Ice Cube Project. Basically what these are doing, they're observing the neutrinos that basically as they they come into the earth, they're supposed to go into the ground, but they have been observing them running the opposite direction. And so this is where they started making some of these
so you're going from the ground out into space,
right? Okay. Yeah, they're not supposed to be going that way.
I'm a little bit familiar with some of the neutrino guns that they've been firing, like from Ohio, and then they'll catch the neutrino in a mine in up by you, Joel, up in Tower.
Mm-hmm.
It's just neutrinos are just bizarre.
It is an odd, fascinating case study.
So can you kind of give us an overview? There's so much interest in Antarctica, all the mysteries.
Why Antarctica?
What is going on down
there? Antarctica, a really mysterious place. You're talking about a land mass, miles and miles of an ice cap, and there's an ancient world that's trapped underneath it. And the question is, what's there? In the drilling that they've done there, they're drilling down into ancient rainforests. You don't ever think of the tropics in Antarctica, but at one point it was. And so I think a lot of what they're looking for down there, since all of these different cultures and land masses and everything had once all been connected to each other. We see pyramids all over the globe, and so I think that there is an ancient culture in Antarctica that also pre-cataclysmic pyramid building type of a culture. And there are some theories that people will look at some of these whether they're mountains or they're pyramids, but they're looking at these satellite photos and say that looks like a pyramid, so maybe it is. And if that's true, that there were civilizations in Antarctica that built these sort of things, well, we still really don't know how the ancients built the things that we do see with our eyes. How do they, move these huge, 1,000-ton blocks? We can't do that today. So, was there perhaps some sort of anti-gravity technology that they utilize? And if they did so, and there's a culture in Antarctica that had also built these things, is that technology trapped under the ice down there? I think they may be looking for anti-gravity technology down there.
Or Atlantis.
Right. or the UFO bases.
Yeah, something. There's got to be something there, Mike.
Yeah,
there's something.
I mean, it's just something. There's just a lot of high strangeness with that area.
Yeah,
there really is. Something's got to be to it.
It's just so hard to know what's true and what's not. Because I read these little articles and I'll watch like Linda Moulton Howe's, some of her reports in Antarctica, and they're really interesting. Some of the stories are fascinating. One that I remember, I don't know if you've ever heard it, where they drop all these scientists off with all this gear, and then they go to check on them, and there's nobody in camp. There's nobody there, and of course, there's no trees. There's no place they can hide.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And then they go back, a week later, and they're all there. They get on the plane, and they're all like not talking. They're just non-responsive. They're not responding. They pick them up and they bring them to Christchurch and drop them off, and that's the end of it. Those are the kind of stories you keep hearing about.
Yeah, the stories are really fascinating, and the problem becomes in getting the proof. Because they're all anecdotal stories. When doing my research for the Alaska Triangle, of course, one of the stories that comes out of there is the Black Pyramid, which is supposed to be, hidden under some of the mountains in Alaska. And everything that's come out of that, they're stories, the anecdotal stories that people have have told. And there's nothing you can actually look at and say, like, Great Pyramid of Giza. We could debate it as, as far as what it was used for. Was it a power plant? Of course, mainstream tries to say it was a tomb. There are other different ideas as to what the pyramid was used for. Well, we can look at it and say, there's the pyramid. Black Pyramid in Alaska, we can't look at it and say, there it is, because it's, hidden underground. So you're only going off of stories, and that makes it very, very difficult.
So what's the Black Pyramid used for? For someone that's just hearing this now. Yeah. What do you mean there's a Black Pyramid in Alaska? What's going on with that, Mike?
Well, there are different ideas and theories, that for one, extraterrestrials are using it for a variety of different reasons. Another idea is that, like the Great Pyramid of Giza, the idea that it was used as a power plant for ancient cultures or ETs up there. And it had this potential to be able to power even as far into Canada, which would be pretty dang powerful if that's the case, because Alaska's a really big state. So you're talking hundreds of thousands of square miles. So
what's your theory? What do you think, Mike?
I really don't have an opinion on the Black Pyramid. I mean, I reported in my book the stories that have been told about it, but without really having something substantial aside from the stories, I really can't tell you.
Not enough empirical data.
No, not at all. And like, with the, going back to Antarctica with the neutrino thing, the idea of a parallel universe running in reverse time and all of this stuff, even a couple of years ago when that first came out, it was like, I could at least point to, you still had, these scientific tests that were being done down there. And, different people can interpret the data in different ways, but you still had those tests that you could point at.
Yeah.
With the Black Pyramid, you just don't have anything. You can say, there's something.
Yeah.
It's because it's just stories. Yeah.
So we're going to go back south again to Antarctica. Do you have any more information on all those notables that flew down? Buzz Aldrin. There were all these different notables that flew down to Antarctica. That was like, what, 10 years ago? 8 years ago? 6 years ago? I don't even remember.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't give you a whole lot of information about what they specifically did down there, but I mean, there's been such an interest in Antarctica and what it could possibly provide for decades. I mean, going all the way back to the Nazis. What in the world were the Nazis doing down there in Antarctica?
Yeah.
They were interested in something. And again, I think there was some ancient technology down there that they wanted and felt that they needed for the Third Reich, and so they were down there looking for it.
There's literally miles of ice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, literally deep.
Yeah, it is significantly deep. Yeah.
I don't know. Excuse me. I don't know if you know who Will Steger is. He lives up by Joel, and he walked across Antarctica.
Oh, wow.
And they did that to get treaties signed. And I've obviously know Will, interviewed him. He said Antarctica was an evil that he could feel.
Oh, interesting.
The whole continent felt evil to him. Because I said, how would you describe like the North? Because he also went to the North Pole unassisted. He said Antarctica is truly the opposite. He said he felt goodness up at the North Pole and evil in Antarctica. Yeah. I don't know if you've ever heard that.
Well, you're talking the difference between different poles. So that's a different side of the magnetic energy, and at different points in time throughout history, they will flip flop. So, and people keep wondering, is that coming up again here soon? And if it does, look out, because the world will go into total disarray.
Yeah.
Antarctica. Normally, people don't describe continents as evil or good.
Yeah, that's a little different.
They're both cold.
But I would chalk that up. I would chalk that up to the electromagnetism in the area, because that can greatly affect your senses and what you're feeling.
Antarctica would be true negative,
right?
We're North Pole would be true positive. So it
that
would stand to reason.
Have you seen a UFO, Mike?
I have once. It's interesting because I've been doing this research for a long time, not specifically UFO research, but research into supernatural and esoteric and metaphysical phenomena. And it wasn't until I think maybe 4 years ago, something like that, where I was driving down I-44 in Missouri at night, and there were a couple of glowing lights in the sky that were paralleling the road as I was, driving down the highway, and I'm looking up, like, what in the world is that? I'm kind of staring at it for a moment, and then all of a sudden, they took off. Like, okay, I think I just saw a UFO.
So were they angled or straight?
They were very narrow vertical lines, two of them side by side like that.
Yeah.
Unlikely that was an airplane.
No, because it was kind of pacing the road there for a little bit before it just zoomed off. Yeah.
Very cool.
Were you by yourself, or was the others with you?
I mean, there were others on the highway. I don't know if they saw. I was in the car by myself.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Very interesting. So, what is the scariest thing that you've ever heard that's happening? Is there some story or some case you've investigated that just kind of haunts you? Can't quit thinking about it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of significant things that I've seen, experienced, stories that I've heard. I mean, the one I kind of told a couple earlier, dire wolf on the chest, or waking up and he's got the old hag sitting on his chest, and throws them off, things like that. I mean, you hear so many nasty tales over the years. It's kind of hard to pinpoint just one.
And I would think you've got a lot of empathy because you've experienced things yourself. So you have more empathy for the witnesses.
Yeah, absolutely. This is something that, we're trying to, help people through, the first step is, okay, helping them realize, you're not alone in all this. Other people have had these experiences. I've had different experiences. And then the next part is to, try to find some peace of mind for them. What can help solve the situation? Is it just Aunt Jane who's coming to visit and we could, help you to, come to those terms, or is it something that's nasty and we need to do something about it?
Somebody had wrote a question in the chat about them kind of bothering babies or coming after babies. Is that something you've heard, Mike?
It's they come after all kinds of people. So they'll appear to the elderly, they'll appear to babies, children, adults. The age almost doesn't matter.
So there's just
no. I mean, if this is something that's studying humanity, people that are coming into, whether it's this dimension or they're from some other planet and they want to watch and observe us, they're going to want to study each phase of life. We do that with animals on our planet.
I think that we could break up the shadow person or shadow entity, well, however you want to do it, and like we had said earlier, into different facets of being. I think that some of them are ET connected. I think some of them are definitely ghosts. I think there's a lot of that going on. I think sometimes when you see a shadow, it's a ghost that does not have the ability or the energy to truly manifest.
Yeah, that definitely happens. Yeah.
So you're going to see it in so many different ways.
Mike, someone was asking in the chat, have you ever felt like something followed you home after doing an investigation?
I'll get that question a lot, and not following an investigation. There have been times that I've walked out of a building and I have felt something behind me, and I'll just turn around and say, no, you're not allowed to follow me home. And I think just putting that intention forth, setting those boundaries, I'm good. I've never really had anything follow me home. Others that I've worked with, have reported something following them home, but not me.
Yeah, I've had a few of them follow me home afterwards, but they never really bothered me. They like to bother my wife, and she would tell me, there's some strange things going on around here, stuff like that. So
the one time my kids thought that I had brought something home, it was just my grandfather who had recently passed away, and he was coming to visit. So, but they for a while thought that I had brought something home with me. I was like, no.
Yeah, but how comforting is that? It's your grandpa that just wants to stop by and say hi. Kind of nice, It's validation that there's more than just this.
Absolutely.
You see what I'm saying? At least it's validation that there's more.
So, with this whole phenomenon, what are you currently most curious about or investigating or trying to puzzle out? Because you've written a lot on the topic. Obviously, you've been researching this for a really long time.
A lot of my work right now is with the Connected Universe. I have an online learning platform called the Connected Universe Portal, where we're diving into a lot of different esoteric topics. And so that's kind of my next book is it's called Connecting the Universe, that I'm working on. So, kind of putting all the pieces together. How do all these different things fit between us, our planet, our solar system, our universe? All these different things fit together in a variety of different ways. So it's really jumping down the rabbit hole where we're looking at things like, some of that material in Antarctica, ancient symbolism, time travel, a lot of these different topics.
You mentioned it could be time travelers, and I find that actually extremely fascinating. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, in a couple different ways. So there would be, an actual time, traveler, somebody who has learned to traverse space and time. I believe that there are people who have learned how to do that. Probably a more advanced civilization, whether it's people on our planet or people from civilizations on other worlds. Then there are a time slip where you observe another point in time in the location that you're at, and those that are there with you at the time are observing you as if you're the ghost, almost something like kind of
Yeah.
like Out of the Others or what have you. And a perfect example that I like to give for that is my good friend Andrea Perrin from the Conjuring House.
I know Andrea real well.
Where one night she and her mother Carolyn had observed from the parlor into the dining room this other family from like the 1700s that suddenly appeared in the dining room. The two gentlemen sitting at the table turned and looked at Andrea and Carolyn as if the one turned to the other, said, "Will you look at that?" As if Andrea and Carolyn were the ghosts. So that's what we would call a time slip. And so these things happen too.
You think that time slips make up at least a small portion of hauntings?
I think so. Yeah. A little bit different than a residual haunt, which would be like a playback of an event. But it's where these two moments in time are just, resonating at the same frequency for just a moment, and each moment is able to get a glimpse of the other. So the past looking at the future, future looking at the past.
In my own research, I kind of find that ley lines play a role in that. The energy of ley lines.
Yeah, ley lines are the telluric currents of the earth, especially where they cross and you have those continuity discontinuities, or I'm sorry, conductivity
like Waverly Hill
discontinuities.
Sanatorium is right between intersection of ley lines.
Yeah.
For instance, one place.
I mean, that's the earth energy right there coming up out of the ground. That's where you get that vortex energy that's welling up from the Earth's magnetic core, spawning off portals and all this different other supernatural activity. Yeah. Absolutely.
So how can one find out where the ley lines are, Joel or Mike? How do you find out? Is there a map?
Some people have put together maps and things like that. I mean, you could actually find them with dowsing rods. We did that up in Alaska for the television show.
It's energy based when you're mapping it. It's almost like geocaching in a lot of ways.
Yeah, but the government doesn't acknowledge ley lines, or do they?
To an extent, yeah. I mean, people will actually, use the dowsing rods, not necessarily for, ley lines, but to find pipes and things like that. So some of these methods that we use, yes, the government does. But in Alaska specifically, the research that I did for the book, Alaska's Mysterious Triangle, in 1965, the U.S. Department of the Interior did a magnetic survey of a sixth of the state, 100,000 miles up there in Alaska. And they found 5 different magnetic characteristics within this region, some of them which they described as negative anomalies. So they absolutely recognize that there are different magnetic properties up there in Alaska.
Yeah. I mean, I've gone to the government maps, where the magnetic anomalies, but the ley line thing has always just kind of eluded me. Like, I'm going to have to kind of research that.
Yeah, that's like Alfred Watkins' The Old Straight Track, which was kind of the first book that came out about that in the early 1920s. And basically what he had recognized was how all of these different like temples, ancient sites of power, cathedrals, things like that, all lined up succinctly. And that was because they had been built on top of the telluric current. So the ley is actually the geographical lining up of all of these different sites. But the reason why they all line up is because the ancients knew to, build their ancient religious sites on these different currents of energy, so they could tap into there for healing purposes, entering altered states of consciousness, and different things like that.
Yeah, no doubt they exist. I just would love to know. Excuse me. There was one home I moved into, lived there for 8-9 years, no paranormal activity, none. It was so nice because there was just nothing. And then moved out again into another home, bam, it all started again. I'm like, it had something to do with the location. You just wonder about that.
And the location has no energy. Yeah,
apparently this location didn't have any ley lines, or it didn't have any weird energy. So whatever it was just nothing ever happened there. Nothing, But then the moment, literally days after we move into another home, started up again. So it was interesting.
So the energy of the locations, yeah.
So have you found that these things, these shadow people, like getting back to that, do they go after people, or do you think they're just in a location?
That's a good question. So one story, it's a Hat Man story. This family that had 3 daughters, and the hat wearing shadow would come into the bedroom and just stand at the edge of the bed of the one girl. Wouldn't do anything. Would just stand there and stare and look at her. And the other two girls from across the bedroom would watch this and they'd be scared. He wouldn't do anything. But this happened like frequently where he would come in and do that. They moved out of that house. Shadow didn't follow. So what you would then, of course, need to do is go to the next family that moved into that other house and be like, okay, are you seeing this sort of thing, to kind of follow up to see if it remained there. So it seemed more like it was, location based with that particular one, but others report these things following them. So again, it just depends on the particular shadow.
Yeah.
People have talked about talking with shadow people. The Hat Man in particular.
Yeah, and that happens more of like a thought transference, some sort of telepathy. Because I'll get asked that, they have voices and like, well, they don't have vocal cords, but it's more of thought transference.
Kind of reminds me of a report I took from a gal who got a hold of me, and she would talk about the Hat Man. And in this particular story, this report, he was holding her down and really holding her tight and really assaulting her. And what had happened is she believes, he was trying to assault her physically, which he was doing, but he wanted to go further. Her roommate happened to come home, and he looks at her in the story, looks at her dead in the eye and says, "I almost had you next time." And he had to take off.
Interesting.
And he laughed because that other person came in the room.
Yeah.
So it can be very terrifying.
Oh, absolutely.
Some of these people have had very terrifying encounters with these shadow entities, and not all of them are good, but also some of them were positive encounters.
Have people seen these outside, Mike?
Yeah. People see them outside in the woods. I've seen them in the woods.
Really?
Yeah. They happen all over. They're not just inside.
That's good to know, Mike.
Do you think to some extent
there is no safe place?
No, there is no. Do you think it's a
not.
dimensional thing? Do you think that it could be a bleed over dimensions too?
Yeah, I think a kind of quote unquote true shadow person is an interdimensional being that's crossed over from some other plane of existence into our world. Yeah.
What's your take on sleep paralysis and how that fits into all this? Do you compared to like the traditional view of
I don't know. How much time do we have left?
Yeah, right. That's a big subject.
It is. That's an entire section of my book, A Walk in the Shadows, is sleep paralysis. It's my opinion, two different phenomena happening at the same time. Sleep paralysis is a real biological phenomenon. Your body will paralyze you while you sleep so that you don't act out your dreams while you're sleeping. And I've experienced it. I've experienced it in the opposite way that people usually experience it. People usually experience sleep paralysis. They wake up and they can't move. But it can also happen where your body is so exhausted it just shuts down, and your mind is still awake, and all of a sudden you can't move. And so that's happened to me.
Exact thing happened.
Yeah, and it's scary.
You can't breathe. You feel like you're suffocating.
Yeah, it's bizarre. And the first time it happened to me, I was like, oh my gosh, what in the world do I do? I was on the job. This is actually when I was in Alaska. I was in the Air Force at the time. You do not want to be caught like sleeping on the job while you're in the military. Not a good idea. So I was like, okay, how do I get out of this? It's terrifying because I'm paralyzed, and terrifying also because I get in trouble. So finally, it's like I figured out, okay, let me try wiggling a toe, and I can finally get one wiggling, and then I wiggle another, and I get my foot moving. Just kind of slowly worked up my body until I could get my head awake again. But the whole time, it's like I'm hearing things around me and in all of that while paralyzed. So it's a real biological phenomenon. Now, the medical community will like to say, well, when you're seeing a shadow entity, shadow being, that it is, you waking up from your dream, you're still hallucinating from your dream, and you're experiencing the sleep paralysis and all that. A couple different problems I have with this. For one, people will see shadow beings while they're fully awake, walking around, not having anything to do with sleep at all. They see them all different.
Oh yeah, people have seen a Walmart, for crying out loud.
Yeah,
everywhere.
Right, everywhere. They're also, not necessarily paralyzed. People will wake up, sometimes they're paralyzed, sometimes they're not. Again, if you're walking around, obviously you're not paralyzed if you're walking around like in Walmart or wherever. Even my first shadow person experience where I was in bed at the time, but I wasn't paralyzed because my mouth opened up, my arms crossed. I was able to turn my head to watch the thing run down the hall. So I wasn't paralyzed. So it's not, they don't necessarily go together. Also, the problem I have with the whole medical community stance is that we dream about a lot of different things. So if this is a hallucination out of our dream, why is it always a person? Because, I dream about, it could be cars, motorcycles, there could be bushes or trees in my dream. I've had dreams of being on stage with Motley Crue, and I've never woken up to, pyrotechnics going off and 20,000 people in my room. It would be a lot of fun, right? But it hasn't happened. People wake up and they see this person standing there. So, right. Again, I think it's two different phenomena happening at the same time.
It's too consistent what people see.
Yeah.
Mike,
and then
I hate to interrupt you, but I got so many questions. You had mentioned you had sleep paralysis. Describe yours, because you said you were awake, meaning you're wide awake, but your body shut down.
Right. Yeah. My whole body shut down because I was too exhausted.
Right. Explain the feeling that you had.
The first time this happened to me twice. The first time it happened, I was terrified for one. I couldn't move. Everything, I couldn't see anything. I'll say that everything was black. So my eyes did shut. But my brain was fully awake and I could hear everything going on around me.
Right.
And I could not move my body. And so I was trying to will my brain to tell my body to wake up.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. See, I had an experience where I was in Russia traveling on a shoot and was poisoned by ketamine to be robbed. When I came back home, I still experienced these hallucinations from the ketamine that they OD'd us.
Mm-hmm.
And so I eventually, every day I would fall asleep. I would become paralyzed, but I would be totally awake. I couldn't move my eyes, but I could look, could hear everything in the room, but my body would feel really heavy and I'd be hard time breathing. And eventually that went away, but boy, that was the scariest thing in the world.
Yeah. Was it predictable, Doug? I mean, could you?
Yeah, it was every day after I got home, it would happen at noon, like day one. Then it was 12:05. I would go paralyzed, and I had to have 24-hour nurse care because I was so screwed up from this OD. And apparently, this ketamine had absorbed into my fat cells, and so or whatever it was. They said it was made from potatoes. This deadly nightshade concoction that they come up with in Russia to put people to make them paralyzed. But it's not good. So when people talk about sleep paralysis, I know exactly what they're talking about because it happened to me every day for a month.
Ouch. That's
not fun. It was scary. I remember
is scary. Yeah.
I remember trying to cry. I'd be paralyzed, but I'd have tears running down my eyes because it was so scary.
Yeah.
And of course your family's, Alex was just a little boy and your family's all looking at you like you're nuts, because they don't realize it's just a chemical cleansing of your body that eventually went away. So it's pretty crazy. Anyhow, but I do not buy that people just wake up paralyzed and they see gray aliens.
It's the question that becomes, okay, so what woke us up if these are two different phenomena that are happening at the same time?
Right.
Because something woke you up and then you're seeing this thing. And because a lot of people will try to say that, well, the entity is making you paralyzed, even though it's on the other side of the room. Somehow it's supposed to be paralyzing you, and you wake up and you see the thing.
And you're not buying that.
No, because again, kind of everything I already said beforehand with all the different cases of we see them when we're not paralyzed and while we're wide awake and all that. So if they're two different phenomena that are occurring at the same time, sometimes, then what is it that's waking us up? And so people that are that have had small children will probably relate to this. At least, my youngest son Cameron would do this. So child wakes up in the middle of the night, they come into the room. A lot of times they tap you on the shoulder or kind of shove you a little bit to wake you up, and they're like, hey, I had a bad dream, or I need a drink of water, I need to use the bathroom, whatever, and you go and take care of it. But my youngest son Cameron, and I hear this from other parents too, wouldn't do that. He would just come to the bed and stand there and stare. And
Not
so
creepy at all.
very creepy. I just like wake up and be like, oh my God, Cameron, what are you doing? And just be like staring at me. And he would say, oh, I had a bad dream, and you drink of water or whatever. Oh, okay, well, go take care of that. You can tap me on the shoulder if you want. But he would he would just come and stare. So
I have a son named Logan that did that to me as well. So I understand your pain. Yeah.
Gotcha.
You look over, you're like, what are you doing?
What are you doing?
Why are you staring at me?
Yeah, exactly.
I never did that.
He didn't tap you. He didn't shake you awake.
No, he didn't touch me. He just stood there. And I'm like, what do you want? I'm thirsty.
Yeah. So the question becomes, what woke you up then?
Yeah.
And the thing is, we each have a toroidal field of energy that surrounds us. The Heart Math Institute has done a lot of great research on this, where you have your own bodily energy that extends forth out. And so when somebody enters that, because they have their own field of energy as well, when their energy crosses into yours, you feel that. And so it was literally his presence that woke me up and woke you up. Yeah. So I think that's what's happening with these shadow entities, is that they have their own field of energy too. And when their energy is in that room, your energy feels theirs cross into yours. That's what's waking you up. And when you wake up, sometimes, not always, as we've already discussed, but sometimes you have that sleep paralysis. And think about this. You wake up, you see a figure in your room. Your mind usually goes to intruder, somebody's broken into the house. So there's a fear that's coming over you. Here's somebody in my room that's not supposed to be there. I'm paralyzed. You can't move. And it's like the adrenaline starts kicking up and everything. So it's like this, you're tumbling down the rabbit hole now of all these emotions that are going through you. So I think that's more of what it is, two separate things that are happening at the same time sometimes.
So I'm assuming, are you aware of Rupert Sheldrake's work, the sense of being stared at, this idea of, people like to your point, people know that people are looking at them even through cameras. He's saying that, if someone's staring at you through a security camera, like there's a certain group of people that can even just pick up on that they're being watched.
Yeah, people will feel energy from others. There's the whole observer phenomenon. Even it'll affect particles. When you get the
even if you read some documentation, like even snipers, military snipers, if they're watching a target too long, the target will start to look around and feel that they're being watched. So even they have a certain amount of time that they can watch them before they become aware.
Right, exactly. It's something. It's something with the energy that's being put forth, something to do with the intention behind it, and people feel that. Yeah,
there's definitely something to that. And what's interesting too about shadow people is I worked a case 4 or 5 years ago of an individual that was dealing with shadow entities in their bedroom at night, but they were the physical menace. They could hear them walking, and there was mass to these things. They're creaking the floorboards. So we had the great idea of, hey, let's put motion sensors all over this room. You're going to be going to bed. Let's do this motion sensor thing. These things were caught on camera without tripping the motion sensors, though.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
That mass was moving around. It was not tripping our motion sensors.
That's really interesting.
It was crazy,
That there was discernible mass, but still not.
Yeah.
Tripping.
We could hear the floorboards creaking under its feet, but it never tripped off the motion sensors.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
What about cases with sound then? That reminds me, it's a good story, Joel. What about cases with sound that you've investigated where they've heard talking or drumming or whatever, creaking, floors creaking? Has there been many cases like that with shadow?
The one that I talked about before that captured at the Campsville grade school, that was one that it was very playful with us because we would hear it. It was like back and forth across this gym where we actually captured it was on camera over by the doors that went down to the boys' locker room within the basement. we would hear things going on over by that doorway, and we'd go over there to investigate. All of a sudden, it'd be back over by the bleachers. You hear all these sounds and noises coming from over by the bleachers. You go back to the bleachers, you hear everything back over there by that doorway again. So it was like back and forth, back and forth. But that's where we caught that shadow entity. So they can physically interact with the environment.
Mm-hmm.
Which means they could pick up a weapon. Thanks, Mike.
Just a weapon. Like we go from walking around in footsteps, so they're picking up a weapon.
Yeah, that's a pretty big leap.
Oh my God.
Or flowers.
Well, I do
There you
hear
go.
that they like to attack people that are taking the garbage out at 3 a.m.
Yeah, thank you, Joel.
That is always.
When you take your trash out, Doug?
They're teasing me because I always got to take the trash out on Wednesday night. And my head's always on a swivel because I usually forget about it till like 3 a.m. And I have to get up and like, oh God, go out there and coyotes and the ghost and the Mothman, everything's going to get me.
That's when they get you. Yep.
Exactly.
Just send the vet out. She's expendable.
Quick question. We have a new
Apparently
subscriber.
I'm expendable.
We have a new subscriber, and thank you so much for being a new subscriber. And everybody else, subscribe and like it, and smash that like button and scream at that subscribe button or whatever it is they say.
So you did a documentary, Mike. Is that released on?
Yeah, the Shadow Dimension that's running now free on Tubi TV. So you go to Tubi TV, look up the Shadow Dimension.
I'm gonna watch it tonight, right before I take the garbage out.
There you go.
There you go.
Thanks, Mike.
Mike, what do you feel about Skinwalker Ranch? Do you have any thoughts on that?
There's definitely some interesting electromagnetic activity going on there. That could be be the cause of a lot of the different activity that's going on there. So. And my buddy James Keenan, who's been on the show, it's Skinwalker Ranch show. I've talked to him a number of times about his findings there in the entire Uintah Basin, because he's done a lot of work there with Blind Frog Ranch and other locations other than those two ranches throughout the whole basin. And there's a lot of fascinating electromagnetic activity there that's certainly the cause for a lot of these different things that are happening there.
I'm actually surprised you haven't been on that show yet.
Yeah, come on.
I haven't gotten the call yet. I know the most recent was Ancient Aliens. I got a couple of other shows I'm filming here this month, so been very busy.
Well,
it sounds like it. It sounds like.
Yeah, once the History Channel gets a hold of you, usually you're going to be circulating and.
Well, yeah, I just filmed for The Unexplained with William Shatner here. Was that last month? Yeah, it's March.
Yeah, it's
very
cool.
interesting. Very cool. Very cool.
Their paranormal lineup is kind of growing, I guess. It's popular.
Yeah, they've been expanding. Yeah.
Yeah, it's popular. And I think Monster Quest probably was one of their first. Must have been.
Yeah.
I can't remember. I don't know. Did they do any paranormal
shows? They did Haunted History
back
that was
then?
around for a while.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You're right.
Yep.
You're right.
But that was, more like a something they'd film, like a haunting was, where it was dramatized. But yours was, might have been the first one where they actually showed field footage.
Yeah.
Actually going out in the field. So.
But I do think it's interesting. I mean, don't you agree, Mike, that the paranormal, the interest in mysteries and the paranormal really is a sign of, intelligence and trying to learn about things? And because it's not something you can just learn a bunch about. You got to go experience it.
You really do. And and it's not just about things that go bump in the night. There's
oh yeah, of course.
There's a lot. It's when you start investigating and researching and exploring, I mean, you start getting into a lot of science, and also there's legend and lore behind it. But it's all about our ancient history. So it's like.
Yeah, but that lore and that legend didn't just
there's
out of somebody's.
There's a grain of truth in there. Yeah. So it's like you have to become part scientist, part anthropologist, part historian, just all these different little pieces and learn all of this esoteric knowledge. It's or learn astronomy. It's a lot.
Well, that is what's cool, because the paranormal leads a person on a path of learning about everything.
Yes.
Because you really can't research it unless it just takes you on this beautiful natural train of learning. And Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it does. I totally agree with you. And the skeptics will kind of at times harp on you. Well, you're not you don't have a PhD in whatever field it is.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm kind of glad that I don't, because if I was pigeonholed into one specific field, it would be harder for me to stand back and put all the different pieces together. So I'm kind of a jack of all trades, have my hands in a lot of different fields, but that helps me put the different pieces together and solve the puzzle.
Yeah, and clearly you could have been successful in doing anything, but I'll bet you that if you would have become whatever, you've learned so much more doing what you're doing about people. And think of the people you've met alone.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that's that's really what it comes down to is, we're helping people to, try to help people understand, again, coming back to, you're not alone in all of this. Other people have had these experiences. And also, I think a big part of all of this is, passing on the information, not just within ourselves, but also to the next generation, because humanity has this vicious cycle of repeating over and over and over again the same mistakes. So I think part of what we need to do is, pass that knowledge on, so we're not making those same mistakes, and the next generation can take it and really push forward with it.
Very, very true. What's your thoughts, Mike, on Bigfoot, cryptids?
I mean, I believe there's certainly something to it. I've not had a Bigfoot experience. I think that the idea that there are small pockets of different creatures out there that we have yet to discover, absolutely. I mean, again, doing the research for Alaska, there was a different species of it was like some sort of bottlenose whale that washed up on shore. I think it was back in 2008 or something like that. But up to that point, we never knew it existed. It was out there somewhere, right? For all of those years. So, so there's certainly something to Bigfoot. There's ideas that the woolly mammoths could still be out there in remote areas of Alaska in small populations. They just had this anthropologist come out. What was it, April 18th or something like that? He had written an article, and he's coming out with a book talking about the little hobbit hominins from the island of Flores in Indonesia.
Right.
That just from stories. Now they have an archaeological record of these humanoid people being there tens of thousands of years ago, but just from stories from the indigenous people on the island, he's saying, yeah, they could still be out there in the forest. So to me, that's a big win for the Bigfoot community, because how many Bigfoot stories are out there? And this guy's like, yeah, I'm sharing 30 stories from these people about, these little people being out in the woods,
Yeah, gotta be something to it, man.
Absolutely.
I mean, look at all the witnesses. Look at all the credible witnesses out there. Look at all the science and the physical evidence.
So, do you want to talk about some of the mysterious cases of missing people?
We can, whatever you guys want to talk about.
Yeah, we've got 10 minutes almost.
Yeah, sure.
So why don't we get into some missing people cases?
Yeah, well, specifically from Alaska. Yeah, specifically with the Alaska Triangle. Very bizarre. You have a very sparse population that's up there in Alaska. Less than the population of San Francisco, and yet they've had since 1988 over 16,000 people go missing. So that's a very, very high percentage of people that have gone missing over that time, and some of them, kind of right in front. I mean, large. Highly viewed. Okay. Michael Lemater in, I think it was 2010, 2011. He's running a race. It's called the Mount Marathon race in Seward. Running up the hill. Everybody sees him just fine. Does not come back down. Gone. Completely disappeared into thin air. They send out search teams. They're looking around, never find a body or anything. There's no accident. Nothing. He just completely disappeared. Gone.
Gone.
Yeah. So we find that with a lot of missing airplanes up there in Alaska. The most notorious 1972 with House Majority Leader Hale Boggs and Representative Nick Begich from there in Alaska. It was like it was the biggest search and rescue operation to that point in time in U.S. history.
Yeah.
Could not find any sign of that plane whatsoever. They had spy planes looking for it. Nothing.
Even to this day, there's nothing, is there?
Nothing at all.
Wow.
And some people wanted to relaunch the investigation a few years back because there was a guy who came forward. He was, I guess it was maybe toward the end of his life or whatever, but he was basically divulging all this information about different crimes in Alaska. He had partaken in and that sort of thing. And one of those had been the Hale Boggs disappearance. And what he said was that he was hired for a job to put a briefcase on the plane and just walk away. Years later, he was told that briefcase had an explosive in it. So they, when the story came out, they wanted to relaunch the investigation. And the FBI immediately said, no, we're not relaunching that investigation. And their reasoning was that there's been no sign of any wreckage whatsoever. If there's an explosion, there would be shards of a plane somewhere. Exactly. And other planes have gone down and have gone missing through the Portage Pass where this thing went missing at. And in all of those decades, as they looked for these other planes, they never found anything from the Hale Boggs missing airplanes. So why would they relaunch it if they didn't have any other, not a piece of evidence whatsoever?
Yeah, yeah.
Wow. So, I mean, do you suspect it's aliens that are taking people generally?
I mean, that's been one theory, like the 1950 Douglas Skymaster that went missing flying up out of Elmendorf Air Force Base headed for Montana, disappeared near Snag in Yukon Territory. Interesting thing about that is a couple of days beforehand near Kodiak, there was a very significant UFO sighting involved the Navy. And then a couple of days after it went missing, there were UFO sightings near Elmendorf Air Force Base. Mm-hmm. One of the theories about that Douglas Skymaster is that it disappeared through some sort of portal, ended up in another dimension somewhere. And, with that theory, I've thrown out this little tidbit that, okay, so let's say that happened, because that's usually where it stops. People that have proposed that theory say, well, it went through some portal, and then, we heard some chatter from the radio come back, through the portal, which could happen because sound works on a different wavelength. So I followed that up with okay, so let's say it did. Where did it go then? Was it another dimension? Was it another point in time? So, okay, let's say it did go to another point in time. And that could mean it could go forward in time, go backward in time. Okay. So let's say it went backward in time, 500 years or so. Okay. Well, who's around in Alaska 500 years ago? We have the natives who have no idea what an airplane is. So if they suddenly see this airplane flying over their heads, the context that they're going to put that into is some sort of large, massive bird that's very, very loud, thunderous in nature. Mm-hmm. Oh, Thunderbirds. So some of our Thunderbird stories and legends could actually be some of these missing airplanes that have come through portals.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That make a lot of sense.
So when you say 60, I mean, these numbers are always shocking. 16,000.
16,000. Yeah. I mean, some of them are just going to be people that got lost in the woods or, got eaten by a bear, or whatever. That stuff happens. But it's the percentage is just, it's crazy. Yeah. Not all of them, went missing out in the woods.
Yeah.
No, that's true. Have you had the chance to meet David Paulides?
I have not. We're Facebook friends, but I've not yet met him.
Oh, geez, yeah. I tell you, he can sure make your day here in.
Yeah, he's done a lot of great work in that area. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I've known David for 25 years now, and heard so many weird stories that I don't sleep good. You're definitely. It's just the fact that somebody can just you can be out in the woods with somebody. They take their eyes off you, then they're gone.
It's not even the woods though, Doug. You could be walking down the street in your town.
Well, yeah.
And boom, blink out.
You're just taking the garbage out. Yeah.
Yeah. It's one of those where you want to say, don't go walking out in the woods alone, but you could be with somebody and
that's happened so many times where people have just taken, diverted their attention to another spot, and they turn around to talk to whoever they were walking with, and they're gone.
There's been accounts where people were walking down the crowded street, full view of everybody, and just blink out and gone.
Yep,
it's like, where'd they go?
Oh, yeah. My mom was nice enough to tell me a story like that when I was 7. Yeah.
That's nice, Mom.
That's what you want to hear when you're 7. Yeah.
Exactly.
That's a bedtime.
Oh my God. And the worst parents that way.
Yeah, I get a sense Mike doesn't scare easy.
No, I've been trying to scare Mike all night.
He's not even phased.
He's not
He's
phased.
laughing at the whole thing.
Yeah. So what does scare you, Mike? Serious.
What does scare me?
Serious. I mean, I don't care. Just whatever in life. What scares you?
The current state of world affairs.
Okay.
Without getting too political.
No, that's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. I mean, yeah, that does scare you.
Both, my friend.
So basically, you're comfortable with the paranormal.
I'm comfortable with the paranormal. The government scares me.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, think about it too. You, if the paranormal was going to hurt you, would have done it when you were young and vulnerable.
Yeah, and I'm more curious about all that. I mean, I will say there was one incident that that really did creep me out as an adult, and that was because I wasn't there for doing anything paranormal. It was a very personal incident, and something paranormal just happened to happen at that time as well. So there was a friend of mine. I was trying to talk her down off a ledge. She had gone to her childhood home, which was an abandoned house at that time. It parked her SUV in the backyard. It was a very dark night. I drove down there, parked in the driveway, walked to her SUV, and we're just talking, just kind of trying to calm her down and all that sort of thing. And as we're talking, I start seeing in the side mirror, in the woods behind us, these dark, shadowy figures creep up to the trees. And it's like, okay, something's going on back there in the woods. We continue to talk, and I keep looking in the side mirror, and more of these little kind of shorter shadow entities are coming up to the trees. Like, this isn't good. This is not what we're here for. And then one of them came out of the woods and approached the back of her SUV. So, and that kind of startled me. And she was also involved with the paranormal. So she says, "You saw something, didn't you?" And I was like, yeah, I saw something. I told her what was going on. And it was like, we should probably get out of here with all this stuff that's going on back here. It was like, this is not what we're here for. It was getting kind of dark and heavy, creepy. So all right. So I get out of the SUV, start walking back to my car. I look back in the trees, and there's still all these, short little shadow entities back in the treetops or around the tree trunks. But I look up in the treetop, and there was this weird, I call it like a living spider web, because it was this white, silky, slinky thing that was moving through the treetop. It's like, okay, yeah, we're we're out of here at this point. I got to my car. We met up somewhere else. It was just, I mean, if it was like, if we were there for some sort of paranormal investigation or whatever, I would have been like off into those woods, to go check it out. But at that point, it was just, no.
Yeah, time and a place for everything.
That's the other weird thing too, is the paranormal doesn't, or things of high strangeness, whether it's a UFO sighting or a Bigfoot sighting, they're never planned. They always happen when you're least expecting it.
Yeah, you can't make the stuff happen on demand. I mean, you can go into, and do an investigation and see and experience some things, but usually it's those moments where you're not actually investigating at all, and then something happens.
Yeah. Yep, that is, well, when you think about that's also when all the best reports happen.
Yeah.
People that are not, thinking about it at all, and they have a paranormal experience out of the blue, out of left field. So, yeah, absolutely. That's the craziest thing. I realize we're getting close. We're almost out of time. Right, Alex?
We are out.
We're out of time. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I want to thank Mike. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. Really
Alex, thank you for making us look good yet another week. Yeah, that's our engineer over there, Alex, doing a bang-up job. Everybody like, subscribe, check out Mike's stuff, check out our stuff. If you're new to the channel, absolutely hit a like button, subscribe, leave a comment for us too. That'd be awesome.
And Mike, we'll have Alex post some of your links. Great. But is there a place you want to direct people?
Yeah, I'll give them 3 websites. So MikeRicksecker.com, that's my main website. The Connected Universe portal, or it's ConnectedUniversePortal.com. That's the learning platform. and then shadowdimension.com. So that'll have all the links to where Shadow Dimension is playing.
Very, very cool. Thanks a ton, Mike.
Thank
you.
you.
A lot of fun.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks again so much.
Until next time, guys. Take care of each other. Love each other. And watch for those shadow people. They're everywhere.